Imagine a mirror that does not reflect the face, but looks back 1,000 years, deep into the blood itself. In this mirror, there are two images that, for centuries, have been trying to either merge into one or move as far away from each other as possible. Russians and Ukrainians, the two largest nations of Eastern Europe. Two neighbors whose destinies are intertwined in a knot so tight that it seems impossible to untie it. We are used to hearing about brotherly nations, a common cradle, and common roots. These words have been present in textbooks, political speeches, and family conversations for generations. But what if we put emotions and politics aside for a moment? If instead of maps and slogans, we turned on a DNA analyzer? Today, humanity has evidence that cannot be rewritten or falsified: genetic memory. It knows no censorship, and it does not serve new rulers. It is there, at the molecular level, that the real thriller begins. What if these two peoples are genetically further apart than many assume? What if the northern Russian has more in common with a Finnish hunter or a Baltic fisherman than with a man from the banks of the Dnieper? And the Ukrainian, looking into the genetic mirror, sees not only Slavic features, but traces of Sarmatian horsemen, steppe tribes, and ancient peoples of the Black Sea region? We are used to believing that language defines a nation, but genetics shows otherwise. People can change their language, religion, and flag, but they cannot change their ancestors. Whose blood actually flows in the veins of the people we call Russians and Ukrainians today? This investigation is not just a dispute between neighbors. It is a key to understanding all of Eastern Europe. We will go back in time and contrast the official story with the facts from the laboratories. We will check whether there really was a single ancient Russian people, or whether it was a union of different tribes united only politically. We will examine ancient burials, trace male and female genetic lines, and test theories of Finno-Ugric influence in the north and steppe origins in the south. History offers two main versions. According to the first, Russians, Ukrainians, and Belarusians descended from a common ancient Russian people, later divided by wars and external influences. According to the second version, from the very beginning, the different tribes of the north and south were separate communities with different origins and different genetic basis. Kiev and Rus may have been a common state, but does that mean its population was a single people? Or were there different biological roots behind the common language and power? The invasion of Batu Khan changed everything. After him, the paths of the ancestors of Russians and Ukrainians diverged for centuries. Some fell under the influence of the Golden Horde, while others fell under the rule of Lithuania and Poland. But the big question remains: does this change only culture and politics, or does it leave a mark in the blood itself? Today, there are three main hypotheses. The first claims that Russians, Ukrainians, and Belarusians are almost genetically indistinguishable. The second suggests a strong Finno-Ugric influence among Russians. And the third claims that it is Ukrainians who carry a stronger degree of South Turkic genetic imprint. In this investigation, we will test each of these versions, not through myths, but through DNA, not through slogans, but through scientific data. And by the end, we will understand whether we are talking about one people with different destinies, or about different peoples united only by history. We have reached the limit beyond which words are no longer enough. Historians can argue endlessly over the same chronicles, but biological markers know no politics, ideology, or nationality. To understand when and why the paths of Russians and Ukrainians diverged, we need to pit three types of evidence against each other: chronicles, archaeology, and language. The chronicles show something extremely important. From the very beginning, the inhabitants of Novgorod and Kiev were not called by the same name. Nestor describes the Poliani, Drevliani, and Severiani in the south, and the Krivichi, Vyatichi, and Ilmenslav in the north. These are not just different names, but different communities with different ways of life. The south is open to Byzantium and the steppes. The north is a world of dense forests, Baltic and Finno-Ugric influences. Archaeology confirms this division. On the territory of present-day Ukraine, the Chernyakovsky culture flourished, a mixture of Goths, Sarmatians, and early Slavs. These were large open settlements, developed crafts, and agriculture. To the north, in the lands of future Russia, a different world dominated. Forest fortifications, dugouts, and a culture associated with local Finno-Ugric tribes. Anthropologists also find differences. The southern type is narrower-faced and related to the ancient steppe and Iranian peoples. The northern type is more massive and bears a clear Baltic and Finno-Ugric influence. The conclusion is clear. Even before the creation of Kiev and Rus, different population groups lived in these territories. They begin to speak similar languages, but their biological basis was formed under different conditions over thousands of years. The language also preserves traces of the past. Ukrainian preserves ancient South Slavic features and a strong steppe influence. It contains numerous words of Turkic origin, related to the Cossacks and the steppe. The Russian language, in turn, carries a powerful layer of Finno-Ugric toponyms and northern influences, combined with the Church Slavonic tradition. But neither the chronicles nor the language can be definitive proof. So the time has come for the most important part of the investigation: DNA analysis. About 5,000 years ago, from the Black Sea steppes, the great Indo-European movement began. It was the Yamnaya culture that left a huge genetic imprint on both Russians and Ukrainians. This is their common ancient root, but then their paths began to diverge. On the territory of Ukraine, the steppe component mixed with ancient agricultural peoples from the south. To the north, steppe tribes meet, with eastern hunter-gatherers and ancient Finno-Ugric groups. Thus, thousands of years before the appearance of the first Slavs, different genetic foundations were formed. Modern DNA maps show an interesting picture. Ukrainians form a relatively compact and close genetic group. The residents of Lviv and Poltava are surprisingly close to each other and have ties with Poles, Slovaks, and the population of southwestern Russia. Russians, however, represent a much more diverse genetic world. Southern Russia is close to Ukrainians and Belarusians, while the northern regions show a significantly stronger Baltic and Finno-Ugric heritage. The further north we move, the more clearly the genetic data shows the influence of Baltic and Finno-Ugric peoples. The difference between a Russian from Arkhangelsk and a Russian from Kursk turns out to be greater than between a resident of Kursk and a Ukrainian from Kiev. This changes the idea of a single biological monolith. Instead of a completely homogeneous nation, we see a vast genetic spectrum. The Y chromosome, which is passed down from father to son, reveals the history of ancient migrations. Both Russians and Ukrainians are dominated by the haplogroup R1a, one of the most ancient Indo-European markers. It is here that their deepest kinship lies. But the differences are also clearly visible. Ukrainians have a strong presence of haplogroup I2, an ancient Balkan and Southern European component associated with the early agricultural peoples of Europe. Among Russians, especially in the northern regions, a haplogroup NCE stands out, a legacy of the Baltic and Finno-Ugric tribes. Among Ukrainians, this marker is relatively rare. Interestingly, on the female line, the picture is much more unified. The mitochondrial DNA of the two peoples is almost identical and corresponds to the general European genetic profile. This means that for millennia, female lines remained stable, while male migrations, wars, and settlements changed the genetic map of Eastern Europe. Science shows both similarities and differences. Russians and Ukrainians share a powerful Indo-European core, but over the millennia, they have developed in different directions. Ukrainians remain more strongly connected to Central Europe, the Balkans, and ancient agricultural cultures in the south. The Russians, especially in the north, became a kind of bridge between the Slavic world, the Baltics, and the Finno-Ugric peoples. Genetic maps show that Ukrainians form a relatively compact group close to Poles, Slovaks, and South Slavic peoples. The Russian genetic profile is much more diverse. Southern and Central Russia are close to Ukrainians and Belarusians, but the northern regions bear a significantly stronger Baltic and Finno-Ugric imprint. This brings us to the main question. Are Russians and Ukrainians the same people? Genetics provides a complex answer. They share a common ancient Indo-European origin and deep-rooted kinship. But over the past millennia, they have formed different genetic profiles under the influence of different environments, different migrations, and different historical processes. Science does not confirm either the theory of complete identity or the idea of complete separation. Russians and Ukrainians resemble two branches of one ancient tree. One grows among the northern forests and the Baltic, the other among the steppes and the southern lands of Europe. They are related, but each carries its own history, recorded in its genetic passport. This investigation showed us something bigger than politics and ideologies. Genes do not recognize borders and do not read historical slogans. There are no, and quote, pure peoples. Every people is the result of thousands of years of migrations, mixing, and the struggle for survival. Russians and Ukrainians are an example of how a common ancient root can develop in different civilizational directions. Some build their world among the harsh northern forests. Others remain closer to the steppes, the south, and the ancient cultures of Europe. Genetics proves that we are connected more deeply than we often imagine. But it also shows that every community has the right to its own identity and its own historical path. Ultimately, DNA doesn't #39 define who we are today. It only preserves the memory of where our ancestors came from. The real question is, what will we leave behind? If this investigation has made you look at history in a new way, support the channel. Subscribe, like the video, and share it so it reaches more people. Write your opinion in the comments. The story continues, and the next investigation is yet to come.